I'm Eric Newton, and this is The Together Show. We all know relationships take work, but what is that work, and how do we do it? As a former divorce lawyer, I've watched thousands of couples break up firsthand. Having seen the worst in relationships, I decided to try to help couples stay together. So on this show, we talk to real couples and find out what love really looks like.
Your soulmate is someone who's there to trigger your deepest wounds, your patterns, what you need to become the person that you can be, to be more compassionate, to be more forgiving, to break you open.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for listening. Well, this is episode 100. It's been just over a year since we launched the show, and things are going great. That said, I've got an announcement. It's time for me to take a short break and catch my breath before continuing on. I'll give you more details about what I have in mind at the end of this episode, so be sure to listen in after the interview is over. With that, let's go to today's guests. Today's episode is about good enough. I was speaking at a dinner event on the topic of relationship success a couple of years ago, and a young man asked me, how do you know when it's good enough? He was wondering how to sort his dates, essentially. All of the women he was dating, in his estimation, were quite lovely, but they were also human, and that means they were flawed, and they weren't perfect matches. And given that, how did he know when it was good enough? And I didn't go down the path as, you might have hoped I would, of reminding him to be aware of his own flaws when asking that question. I think that goes without saying. Rather, the answer that I blurted out at the time was that if it's good enough to be good, it's good enough to be great. Now, that answer just popped out, and I did elaborate on it. But I also didn't know if it was entirely right at the time. But I'll tell you, I've been thinking about it ever since, and the more time that passes, the more I'm clear that that concept is right on. We all know that nobody is perfect, and we all know that our partners can't possibly live up to our internal expectations. And yet we're always hunting for that perfect partner, and never more so than when we're in the initial dating phase. But the hunt for perfection is a dead end. It can't possibly be fulfilled. We all know that. And it leads not to satisfaction, but to more searching and more hunting and more anxiety in a never-ending cycle. Well, today's guests have put that cycle to rest. They're still human, of course, but these two are exceptionally happy, and they've made their relationship great. And yet, when they got married, these two both acknowledged that they really didn't know anything about one another, and they didn't learn anything about one another until after they were married, and they spent their first challenging year learning one another's idiosyncrasies. These two understood something that I believe the rest of us should digest. Good enough is in fact perfect if you'll allow it to be. So with that, let's go to our interview with Tejal and Chirag. This idea of taking something that annoys you, finding the genius in it, the value in it. What's that? That's a kind of a Jedi mind trick. Do you have any thoughts on that?
So for me, I have some peculiar idiosyncrasies that could potentially be annoying to someone.
Like what?
I'm a little bit OCD. I'm sure he'll probably have a lot of stuff to say on this, but I'm OCD about like cleanliness and wanting things to be a certain way, and everything has a place. And I'm very regimented and disciplined and detail oriented. So to some people that might seem a little overbearing because everything kind of needs to be in its place and be, that might seem a little overbearing or odd for someone who's not necessarily on board with the whole cleanliness thing to that degree. And what I've learned is that if it's my idiosyncrasy, it's something that I can't expect him to do or to follow along with, or sometimes even to accept it. And so I try to manage it myself. And if it's something that's important to him or it's his peculiarity, I don't hold it against him. I allow him the space to have whatever he needs to have done in his own way.
Okay, that's an interesting idea, but let me stress test it. Seems to me like when we're in the middle of one of those disagreements that we all have, and we're never thinking, oh, this is my idiosyncrasy. We're always thinking, I'm right. And this other person is just being an idiot or something like that, maybe more charitably. So how did you get to the point of being able to say, oh, this is mine, actually?
Well, that's where my mindfulness and meditation practice came in. I didn't get to this place until I had the awareness to create a practice where I'm looking within myself to see the areas that I need to grow, see the areas that I need to heal, see the areas that I'm lacking as an individual, whether it be communication or my expectations or, what kind of support do I really need to feel like a whole, confident person, whether it be my own self-love or what are the things that I need to hear from my spouse, my love language, so to speak, right? What is my spouse's love language? It wasn't only until I really started to look within myself to understand what are my idiosyncrasies, what are the things that I lack in with my communication, and I can't expect my husband to to be the one who's gonna, always be there to support me in the sense that, like, if it's my issue or my lesson that I need to learn, I can't put that on him or my expectation on him to get the validation that I might need that I'm not giving myself.
Was something happening in your marriage that you decided you needed to go find some tools and meditation was the answer?
For me, the reality is that I was struggling with anxiety and stress since I was 4 years old, and I had repressed so many emotions. And it was as my work as being a divorce attorney. And, I was working in San Diego and I had this great job. And then when I was planning to get married, I moved to the East Coast. And that was the worst market, that was when the economy tanked and I wasn't able to find a job. And so I created my own law practice and I was doing this divorce mediation. And, when I got trained to it, I was really learning how to communicate and help these clients, communicate with each other. And I was like, wait, I can start putting these tools into my own life. It was not only to help me professionally, but it also helped me personally.
Right.
And I started testing these little tools out with our own communication because we did have struggles with communication. That was the biggest thing, if I could say, in our marriage the first year, or we still are working on, is always that communication and understanding.
What was the struggles with communication? What were those?
Well, for me, because of my patterns, I would shut down. So I am someone...
Yeah, we're like complete opposites in terms of that. So like, I'll let her speak and then I'll kind of tell you my story.
He got excited.
I know he did. He's like, oh. So for me, because of my patterns of, I grew up in a household, loving parents, but there's a lot of anger, yelling. So whenever someone would raise their voice at me, that made me shut down because it took me back to a place in my childhood where I felt less than, stupid, not heard, not validated, not worthy.
Right.
And my husband has a voice. He's passionate. He's blunt. He's, when he talks, his voice gets raised, and that triggered something in me because I felt like he was yelling at me.
Yeah.
And it took me to a place where I was that 4-year-old little girl. And I needed to understand, until I understood what was happening, that why was I getting triggered by when we're having these conversations? It's because it was triggering something else, not even related to him.
Yeah.
And so once I pieced that together, and for him, he wants to have the conversation out right there and right then. And I needed time to process things and to kind of gather myself. So we had a different style of communication and how we, communicate as far as like when something is on our mind. I would let it marinate a little bit and then kind of address it. And he would just want to say it right then and there.
Right. Classic dynamic, by the way.
Yeah.
That's like textbook.
Right.
And then there's some basic rules you can apply.
Yeah, and for me, it was one of those things like when she was saying communication was the big thing, and that's something we're still working on. Is I just stopped communicating because I felt like every time I said something, it's going to trigger this emotion in her, which is not her, and we're never really going to get to the bottom of what we need to talk about, and we would go off on other tangents and insecurities that we have, of each other. what you normally have early on in a relationship, which we're dealing with in year 1, year 2, year 3 of marriage. Right. So it became one of those things where it was like, I can't communicate if I'm not going to be allowed to communicate the way that I'm used to. For her, it was
really though? Because I mean, you could also, you could change your way of communicating.
Absolutely. But when you're in the beginning of a relationship, it's that, struggle, tug of war, the things that you go through to just, you're finding each other's balances. So it's one of the stubbornness that you kind of have within yourself. And we're both very stubborn people too, and for good or bad. And so it was one of those things that, that really prompted both of us to kind of look at, well, where am I coming from?
Yeah.
Is it really about this? Or is it stuff that I also went through?
Well, it always is.
In the past, whether it's my own family or
it always is.
Right.
But in the specific situation where one person withdraws and the other person raises their voice,
right,
that always gets defined as yelling.
Right.
And then the person who's being accused of yelling feels maligned. Like,
right.
Wait, I'm not abusive. Yes. I'm not a bad person. This is how I talk. And the other person's like, no, you are yelling at me and that's inappropriate. Right. And both of you are getting upset because of things from your past, and both of you are doing your thing because of things from the past. So what do you do?
So I started writing. So I would, especially when I felt like I didn't need to say something, or I took it to a level that I probably shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Before I would leave for work, I would write her a little note or an email, depending on, what the circumstance was. Yeah. I would do that, and it opened us up a little bit. And I think that gave her the avenue too, because she could respond without me being there, making her feel like, oh my God, he's going to react XYZ. So there were times, right? Like, we communicated through email for like 2-3 days.
Wow.
Because it just felt like one of those things where if we talked about that particular topic, it's just going to go back to that same circle.
So you would talk about other things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But when you're that sore tooth.
Yeah. We were emailing, we were writing little cards to each other.
Guys, you guys are so smart.
I don't know about that, but
it
was desperation.
The necessity, the true necessity, the mother of invention.
Yes. Or the feeling that it's desperation, right?
Yeah, well, it's also an illusion.
Right.
Sure.
And I'm one of those people, I always, as she described, I want to resolve something. Yeah. Like, I don't want it brewing for 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, 15 days, 2 years, whatever it is. Like, if it's something that's bothering someone, let's sit down, let's talk about it, let's have a conversation. And I was probably going about it the wrong way, but my intentions were always on the right side. And my love never diminished for her because of that.
Oh, no, that's the secret, I think, to be able to communicate. I'm very angry with you right now, honey, and my voice is loud, but I still love you.
Right.
Which can also sound patronizing, but that's sort of the key. Okay, I want to turn to babies and sex, but one last question about this whole issue. At the beginning of our interview, Tejal, you said he was your soulmate, the one. But then we got around to this idea that actually he was just good enough, and now you've made him amazing. What's the deal with that?
So my definition of a soulmate is much broader than what you see on TV or I truly believe it's not just the person that you're with in a romantic relationship. I think I have friends that are soulmates. I have people that are, part of my family who I consider part of my soul family who are soulmates. I think a soulmate is someone who's brought into your life to help elevate your spiritual existence, to help you grow, evolve, and heal. And they're going to show up. It's not about all roses and butterflies and unicorns. Your soulmate is someone who's there to trigger your deepest wounds, your patterns, what you need to become the person that you can be, to be more compassionate, to be more forgiving, to break you open. And so for me, I think people can have numerous soulmates in their life if you're talking about a romantic relationship, because they're brought into your life in a given purpose for a given reason. And some soulmates stay an eternity, and some soulmates, you're in a relationship with them for 10 years they're brought into your life for a reason, and they're taken out of your life at the exact moment for your highest good.
Genius.
So I don't have a limited viewpoint on soulmate. Like, this is the one, and he's the only one for me. And it's not that. It's someone that I have a soul contract to beyond this time, who was brought to me at the right time, at the divine timing, that our spiritual lessons align. Because the one thing outside of our marriage, being him an entrepreneur and me an entrepreneur, there are so many lessons that we've had to learn, and I can see why we've been brought in each other's life, because what are my strengths are often his weaknesses, and what are his strengths are my weaknesses. So he's teaching me stuff, and I'm not talking about marriage, but just as a human being, how to show up in life, how to move through my obstacles. He's helped me so much, giving me the courage to leave my divorce practice to do what I feel passionate about. There's so much that we bounce off each other, and I think we really help each other's souls grow in a dynamic way.
Okay, now I want to turn to a totally different topic. There's been, I've had a couple of listeners recently ask if I could explore the question of how to make the decision whether or not to have kids. And you've got a unique perspective on this. You were a divorce lawyer, as I was, so you've seen how right and how wrong relationships can go. And you've seen how people fight tooth and nail for their kids, and how that's a beautiful thing, and it can be very destructive too. And you come from a culture where I'm guessing, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing if you're married, kids are just what's going to happen. It's not a do we want kids, it's a when are we going to have kids? And
it's stage 3 of life.
It's stage 3 of life, and it's a pretty quick stage, right? This isn't something you deliberate on. So talk about the process of deciding to have kids, and let's see what we can pull out of that.
So another interesting thing about that is we kind of differ on that whole process, or that whole thought process of when it's time to have kids or when you're ready. So my belief in that, since I was a young kid, is you're never ready for stuff. It just happens, and it's gonna happen. So if you say, year 1, we're gonna do this, year 2, we're gonna do this, year 3, year 5, kid number 1, year 8, kid number 2, life doesn't work that way. Things happen to you, things happen in your relationship, things happen in your family. So I'm under that belief system that once you trust each other, once you love each other, once you really feel that, okay, this is the dynamic that you want, the next progression should be children in your life. Because the big advantage of having children in your life is they bring a different perspective in life and your relationship. But you're never truly ready for that. We weren't ready for marriage in that aspect, but when we saw each other and we met each other, it was like the right progression, right? So her belief system is a little bit different, and I'll let her explain that. But for me, probably year 3, I was like, I think we worked out the kinks, let's start thinking about this. And for her, and a lot of times I think, and this is a very valid reason that she's going to tell you, like, I don't disagree with her reason. We just defer in what those reasons are, but she'll tell you her reasoning.
Okay. Before we turn to her though, so to understand that, you're saying once you've made the decision that you're going to be married and have kids, just have the kids, right? Because things work themselves out.
Right.
Okay, what if you're somebody who doesn't want kids? Is that a wrong way of thinking? I'm not sure if you were saying that.
Okay, so one of the things when you're trying to find out about the other person and find out about each other, it's going to be harsh probably the way I say it, but if she said she didn't want kids, I would have stopped the relationship right there.
Yeah. Okay, but that's not what I'm asking, because that's obvious to me.
Okay.
Of course you guys asked that question at the beginning,
right?
And of course the answer was yes.
Right.
But no, I'm saying, what about for couples out there who don't want kids? Are they missing something? Are you making a broader statement that they're missing something fundamental in life, or
Well, no, I'll say that. I mean, I don't. I think if you don't want kids just because you don't feel like you're gonna be the right type of parent, or whatever those things are, then yes, you're content with your marriage and you have a right to choose the path that you choose because it's your path.
yeah,
But if you're thinking we're gonna wait for the perfect moment, then you're definitely missing out on life in general because there are no perfect moments.
Yeah,
The perfect moment is when the kid's going to be born.
okay,
When you're in that room, that's the perfect moment.
okay, all right, I get that. Cool. All right, now let's turn to you. So Tejal, what was the difference?
So, I touched upon my childhood a little bit, and I had a very tumultuous relationship with my mom, and I was, in my late 20s after we got married. And up until my 30s, I was really processing a lot of that through my meditation and my practice. And a lot of healing was coming up. And I knew that the patterns that were instilled in my mom, like my mom was, severely insecure. She was, chronically stressed. And there was a lot of anger and tension and anxiety around my mom that I absorbed as a child, that I carried these patterns into my adulthood. And I remember my brother saying something when I was 10 years old when my mom was having a emotional breakdown episode. And he said, and that's, I think, probably carried with me. And he's like, use this experience or this situation where you see mom as your indication of the type of mom you don't want to be when you grow up. So use it as a learning experience. Don't look at it as like, it's a negative thing. Make the most of it, learn from it. Who do you want to be? What kind of mom do you want to be? And in my late 20s, I was still just tipping the iceberg of breaking open to these patterns that I had. So, I had these wounds and these patterns, and I didn't feel ready to be a mom because I knew for a fact that if I had children before I was ready, I would pass these traits on to my children.
Right.
And I wanted to get a good grasp of what it meant for me, what kind of mom I wanted to be. I wanted to be more centered. I wanted to be someone who was confident in my communication. And as I progressed on my career and I shifted out of being a divorce attorney and teaching mindfulness and yoga to kids, I started to know that this is the type of mom that I want to be. And I wanted to lead by example, not just someone who's like, oh, this is a lofty idea. I wanted to be a mom who really created a different experience for myself, my family, and my kids. Right. So I did not, when he was ready to have kids, I was not secure in myself where I was as an individual or a parent, who I would be as a parent. So I listened and I listened to my intuition, and then I said, I'm not ready at this moment. I need to heal myself before I can bring children into the picture.
It's such a privilege to be able to say that generational trauma stops with me. Yeah. That's I feel like that's the ultimate, in fact, parenting gift that you can give, because we pass so much down from our families.
Yes.
Well, blessings on you for doing that. So then, how did you know it was ready?
So, interestingly enough, looking in retrospect, we always have a plan in our mind of when I was finally ready, we're like, okay, let's start trying. And looking back at it, took us quite a long time for me to get pregnant. And
what does trying actually end up meaning?
Just you're not taking birth control and you're open to, I was like monitoring my cycles and, all that other jazz that comes along with like, ovulation and all that stuff. So it was like trying to maximize the opportunity, and we're open to it, right? Like it was, you're open to being getting pregnant at any time.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. So, it was probably a year and a half from the time that we're like, okay, we're ready and we're prepared, and me actually getting pregnant.
No, that's that's about average, I understand. But from what I've heard from other women in that phase, it's really scary if after just a couple months you haven't gotten pregnant. You start wondering if something's wrong with you.
Absolutely.
Did that kick in?
Yeah, that did. I went to a fertility specialist because you just wanted to make sure that everything was okay. And it was interesting.
We both did, actually.
Yeah, we both just to be sure. And
even before you started trying, you mean?
No,
after. Because it was taking
after it took a little bit.
A year. So we were like, let's just make sure that everything's okay.
Yeah.
And, everything was fine. And not to knock doctors, but, they're like, what you have is what's called unexplainable infertility.
Which is to say, we don't know what this is. You're fine.
Yeah. But they're like, let's get ready and let's, why don't we do some treatments on you so we can, and I say, whoa, 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 whoa. So there's nothing wrong with me. And that's when things shifted from me. There's like, okay, there's nothing wrong with me physically, nothing wrong with you physically. It's our mentality and our resistance that things need to go on our timeline. And when it doesn't happen, we get all disheveled and all anxious and frustrated and impatient. And that's when I eased up and I was like, you know what? If I'm meant to be a mom, there's nothing wrong with us. It's going to happen when it's right. And that's when the pressure, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to stop living my life and just focusing on just becoming a parent or trying to get pregnant.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to, I was getting really deep into my yoga and meditation. And I had this opportunity and I was like, you know what? This year-long training to be a yoga and meditation teacher is coming up. And if I get pregnant or if I become a mom, that might not be something I could do until a couple years from now. I was like, I'm going to take advantage of that opportunity and I'm going to do it. And it was 4 months into that yoga and meditation training that I got pregnant. And we weren't even like, there was no pressure. It was just like, okay, it'll happen, whatever. And it just naturally happened at exactly when it was supposed to.
And there's some research to support that the relaxing mentality causes you to be able to become pregnant more easily. But saying that to somebody in that stage doesn't help at all.
No, it didn't help us either. I mean, everybody tells you, give up coffee, give up alcohol, eat more almonds, eat more walnuts, sleep more, do this, but life's happening to you, and it's just difficult to follow those things. But I think once both of us found out that there was nothing physically wrong with us, we knew kind of what we needed to bring back in terms of what that meant for our relationship and to kind of take that pressure off of, hey, we're trying for kids and kind of just let's have sex and, let's have it more frequently so it doesn't feel like you're clocking in and clocking out, and
got to kill it. Right?
And that tends to happen to everybody. Like I talk to my friends about it, and everybody's like, that first early on, that's what happens. And it takes the romance out a little bit and it's kind of like, it really is like, you're going there to build like a car. Like, that's what I feel like that's what it feels like because it's all of a sudden it's like limited time. You have 3 days, you have 4 days, and you need to be there. You need to be clear mind. You can't be angry. But life happens, and in so many of those months, we had really bad stuff happen in our family. And unfortunately that fell on the time when she was most, available in that sense. And then you can't have sex because you're at a funeral or you're, you're taking care of someone. And so those things happen to you. But once we figured out that nothing's wrong with us, it kind of just became much easier for us.
Totally. Yeah.
I have to put, what really helped me, because you made a valid point. Like when you're in the mindset and you're going through that, it's hard to get out of that mindset. Like, how am I supposed to relax? Or how am I supposed to, just go with the flow? And what really helped me was, you know what? I'm not going to let my life stop because I want to have children. And for me, that decision is like, I'm going to go ahead and do this yoga and meditation training because it's something for me. It made me happy. I felt more alive. I felt like I was enjoying my life. And I think that energy and that shift in me. And then, I stopped all that ovulation stuff. I was like, this is not testing and doing all that. It's not the way to go. And I think when I focused on doing things and not stopping your life because you just want a child or, something's not going the way that you want it to go, when you ease up off of that, you bring a different energy to your life and a different presence. And that, I think, that shifted it for me.
Yeah, definitely. There's this funny concept that wanting a child is a narcissistic desire, but then having a child is a narcissism killer. Does that resonate with you guys at all? This idea that to want a kid, it's you who wants the kid. I want a kid, or I don't want a kid. It's all about you. Is that right? Or did you guys have a way of getting out of that trap?
Well, for me, and I look at it in a different way in the sense that I truly believe that your children are your greatest spiritual teachers. It's not that
But still, that's about you.
No, not necessarily, because I'll let me explain about it.
Okay.
So them being your greatest spiritual teachers in the sense that you're like the soul contracts. You are there for each other's growth and evolution. So when I parent, I don't parent from what's for my convenience or what's going to make my life easier. What is for the highest good of my child? So the relationship and the dynamic is I'm always about what is for the highest good of all involved. It's not like this is my child and this is what I'm going to do and this is how I'm going to raise him. No, it's about tuning into what is for his highest good. What does he need from a parent? And so I truly view it as it's a partnership. My relationship with my son is a partnership. And so having a child, it's about bringing a life and bringing in another spiritual being into your life or another soul that is meant to help you grow, and you're there to help them grow too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So for me, I don't think about it that deeply. I just think it's a child that I want to have as part of my family, and if that goes this way or that way in terms of where it comes off as, I'm content with it for myself. So I didn't. For me, it was the natural progression is that we're both great people. We love each other. It's time to bring somebody onto this planet that we can call our child and see what we can do in terms of nurturing them, loving them, and raising them.
Yeah.
In the environment.
Yeah. Okay. I got it. Okay. So you gave up on the trying, which allowed it to happen, and then suddenly you were pregnant. What happened? And you've been having sex more frequently in order to get to that stage. What happened to your sex lives during pregnancy and after childbirth?
Well, for me during pregnancy, it was, I think there was still some inherent fear or insecurity of just like my body, like I'm used to being a petite, like trim and fit woman.
Yeah.
And I like to feel confident in my body. And I didn't necessarily in my pregnancy feel completely confident in my body.
During the pregnancy.
And so, sex was something that for me was just not in my vicinity. There's nothing about me that felt sexy. So I couldn't turn it on.
You couldn't turn it on. Yeah. And what about for you? Were you turned on?
I had never really got an opportunity to,
even try
that. So, but I respected it. I mean, that's one of the things, like I said, that to me, all those things are dictated by another person. Yeah. So you let them lead because it's not you who's going through the changes.
Yeah.
It's the other person.
Yeah.
So I respected her wishes when we came across those things a few of the times after she got pregnant.
That's one of the classic reasons that you hear from people, from women specifically, that don't want to have sex either during or after childbirth, is that they don't find their own body sexy. And there are a host of other reasons. That one's legitimate. Those are all legitimate. But that one has always struck me as interesting because it's not a biological feeling. It's not like your sex drive is low because of chemicals. It's a concept. And it's a concept about sexiness, which has something to do with your own view of yourself, but also has to do with your understanding of how you're viewed by the outside world. Right?
Right.
So what if he had made it somehow clear, he communicated it in an appropriate and in a good way, that he found you immensely sexy in your pregnancy? Would that have made a difference?
It possibly, but I think, like you mentioned, I think it's sometimes it's what's in your mind. I think I've worked because I recognize that I've worked a lot about the way that I view my body and like honoring it. Like that's my body's freaking amazing for what it went through. And I think I have a lot more respect for my body now. And whenever I get pregnant again, I think I will be able to honor that pregnancy and look at it. I think I wasn't at a place in my life looking at I put too much emphasis on how I looked at my,
Yeah.
and I think it doesn't really matter what he would have said. It's me shifting my perspective about my body, which I did after my pregnancy because my body's different. But the other thing is I just told him, I was like, my body's different, but I'm very comfortable in my skin and I'm probably in the best shape of my life now after my pregnancy because I take care of myself. I eat well, I work out, and maybe not as consistently as before, but my view about how my body has changed and the resilience and the power of the female body has changed. So I think I told myself that whenever I get pregnant again, I'm going to really honor it and nurture it and love it and be like, you are rocking for you to hold this baby and you're growing. So I think I might be different the second time around because I honor and value my body a little bit more now. Much more now.
Yeah. I love that. I love the shift that you've gone through, and I can't wait to hear what happens the next time. But I'm still curious. Like, what is it that allows the shift is what I'm curious about. Like you said, you weren't ready for that shift before, which I get. And then that's just the case sometimes, and so be it. But what is it that then changes that allows you to be ready for the shift?
For me, it was really working. I make a conscious effort to work on self-love. I really make an effort, after my pregnancy, after I became a mom, I teach moms how to do this. Every single day when I start my day, in the morning while I'm brushing my teeth, I'm looking at my eyes, gazing deeply into my eyes, saying, I love you to myself, saying, I honor you for who you are. I accept you for the person that you are and what your purpose is. Like I've definitely changed my self-talk about myself. And I start each day being like, you're a rock star. You're amazing. And so I think it's just a natural inclination of me devoting the time to look at my strengths and build myself up and give myself the validation that so often we seek from our partner or our parents or other people. I had took the liberty and I took the responsibility that I need to give myself permission to do that for myself. Yeah. And once I took control over that, that's what the shift was. That's when the shift happened in my mindset, when I started to show up for myself and give myself the confidence and the self-worth that I needed.
Which you weren't willing to do for yourself earlier.
I wasn't ready for it, right? We go through natural progressions at the right time when we're supposed to. And that wasn't what, it came about at the right time, at the right place. And so that was something, and that was something that I had to go through, and maybe the pregnancy and just understanding the shifts in my body to be able to understand that and to really honor it. Like, your body went through a lot, and look at you now, and look at what you did, and look what your body can do, and how it nourished your son, and it's some pretty gnarly things, and you can only get that until you experience it.
Your child is your greatest spiritual teacher.
Yeah,
that's beautiful. Now you looked like you wanted to say something about all that. Did Chirag?
No, I just find it interesting because every woman has a different story to tell, right? Mm-hmm. So I think sometimes, as you said, certain things just don't have answers. It's what comes about when you're going through the experience. And I was thinking, because you said, if he had made you feel sexy, would you have, changed your thought process? And
you shook your head no when I asked that.
Yeah, and I was also thinking in my head, because one thing that I've always learned, I've been raised by a lot of women collectively, and women's mental strength and intuition, like a male counterpart, is like no comparison to it. So you can't do anything to change that. It has to be them. Like, I think males are easily converted or can be convinced of something. For women, they really have to feel and experience it before they actually make that change.
So for you, the process is to have patience for it?
Yeah. Yeah. Just because I think, if you're not accepting who that person is becoming now as a mother of your child, future mother of your child.
Well, guys, this is great stuff. I really appreciate your insights. Tejal, tell us your website.
Yeah, so my website for moms who want to get more information about infusing mindfulness or meditation in their life and their children's life is tejalvpatel.com. It's my name, so tejalvpatel.com.
With a name like that, you've got to have the V.
Yes.
There's going to be a lot of Tejal Patels right there.
Exactly. That's why it has the V.
Okay, great. And you have a new course out?
Yeah. So I launch my mindfulness course for moms twice a year, and it's called the Mindful Mama Experience. And I have a 5-day challenge that I do beforehand because, moms are always skeptical. Like, how am I going to have time to find inner peace in my day? And I have a really gnarly way of infusing mindfulness in mom's life. It's specifically designed and infuses into your normal day-to-day life, no adding 10 minutes of meditation or 20 minutes of meditation. It's like when you're in carpool lane or you're opening the garage door or brushing your teeth. It's really intuitive ways and natural ways for it to infuse in. So I have a 5-day mindfulness reset, which is free for moms to join on. And they can go to my website and there says 5-day reset on it. So they can just click right on that on the navigation bar. And then it leads into the course, which is a natural progression of it. You can try out my course for free. And then you can, it's a 6-week online group coaching program that I coach moms across the nation. I have some people who are, international too. So it's just a wonderful way of connecting with like-minded moms who are interested and willing to learn tools to better manage stress, how to tune into their mother's intuition, what we've been talking about. How do you build this self-love and this acceptance of yourself? And when the shift happens with you, it transforms everyone in the family. The way that you show up when you're modeling it and you're the example of it, it really affects everyone in your family, especially your children. And of course, when you have the foundation, I teach them how to teach their children at a young age how to build this practice of self-love and confidence. And how do you deal with anger and rather than, getting consumed by it. And so it's a wonderful, wonderful new way of approaching motherhood.
And Chirag is saying yes, that this affected the whole family. I mean, that's sort of your whole point, isn't it?
Yeah. And what I would like to point out for a lot of people who might be thinking or imagining, what is this? And, is she going to leave me? If she becomes more mindful, she doesn't leave you. She becomes closer to you. And I would also add that it doesn't stop your relationship. You're still going to have your fights. You're still going to have your struggles. You're going to have bad days, good days. But now you're more conscious about what's going on around you. And I think that's a big, big thing that's helped me with my son, because my dad was an angry young man and I was pretty much an angry young man. And knowing that my son doesn't need to get that and doesn't need to be, I guess I should say he shouldn't be getting that energy, has been a great lesson. So it's been really cool. And I, as a father, sometimes I do join in, when they're doing their meditation and stuff like that. So it's fun.
That's so great. You guys, what a power couple. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks.
Now, I like to end episodes with a quick game of this or that.
Okay.
You know how this works? I'm going to give you a this or that, and you just say which one you prefer.
Okay.
Now, wait, how old's your son?
He's almost 2.
So he's not playing Would You Rather yet?
No.
Okay. Darn, this is my great. I always want parents to give me their kids this or that questions, but I always have parents at this age.
He does say, "What's this?"
Daddy, what's this? Yeah, that's a different kind of game.
If he was here, he would have probably asked you this whole time, like, "What's this? What's this? What's this?" So
that's an elephant.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, look, Batman or Superman?
Superman.
Superman. Both you guys. Now, why?
Nothing better than flying.
Flying in the belief that there are people out there that are not from this planet. Oh. I truly believe that. We're not alone.
We just discovered a new galaxy.
Yeah.
How excited about that?
4 planets, big time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Would you, let's see if I can, I was going to just ask a random question, but I can turn it into a this or that question. If you had the opportunity to go to explore that as a family, that planet. But you would have to lose contact with your entire family here and never see them again or talk to them because of the communications. Would you do it?
Not me.
I would.
You would. I thought it was going to be the other way around. You would do it, Tejal. What? And then, but what if he didn't want to?
It doesn't matter.
She would send her alone.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to send her alone. She's going to go alone, right? It's her choice.
It's not our immediate family that's going?
Well, that's how I asked it, but you guys just made it even more challenging.
I would be, no, I mean, if it was I would want my immediate family
What
to
if
go.
it was just you? They're like, Tejal, we need you on this mission. We need mindful mama practices to make the new planet work.
I'd be like, take my e-course. Get on the internet and take my e-course.
It's not going to work. We need you in person.
Then I'd be like, sorry, maybe next lifetime.
You would forego that adventure for the family.
Yeah, not for my immediate
What
family.
if she said that she was going to do it, but it was going to be leaving your family behind? Chirag, what would you say to her?
I couldn't say anything to her. I'm not. It's kind of funny. I try to let people make their own decisions, even if I'm not agreeing with them.
Would you get angry and yell and try to convince her?
No, I don't think I would, because I've always believed in that aspect. And early on, she'll verify that when we were going through our early relationship struggles, my quote always was, or my words were, "It's not going to be me who's going to convince you. It has to be you who gets convinced that this is right and we're in the right place."
You guys are both sages.
Yeah, definitely not a sage.
Okay, second to last question. If you had to either choose enlightenment or $1 billion, which would it be?
Enlightenment. Enlightenment. No questions asked.
That's a tough one. I want to do a lot of good in the world, so I'll probably take the $1 billion.
And just be miserable.
No,
I didn't say you'd be miserable. That's
right,
true. Good point.
right,
Good
right,
point.
right.
You just were about
I can
to
still
lawyer
get
me on
to
that.
I can still get to enlightenment, but I may not get the $1 billion again. So
It's true. You can be enlightened and poor as hell.
yes, yes, absolutely.
I'm going to manifest it. I'm going to manifest that $1 billion.
I love it. Oh, please do. Okay, and last question. If you had to either die in the next 5 minutes or live for eternity, for infinity, which would it be?
Live forever.
Would you be stuck in this body at this time, or do you get old?
Now, the genie who's giving you this can't answer that question. All that the genie can say is you're going to live forever. And that means past. We don't know about physics, but it might be that there's going to be a heat death of the universe.
Right.
I'd probably live to eternity then.
I'll experience it all.
Because I like who I am right now. So if it's like, even if I'm frozen at this time for all of eternity, I'd be really, I'm happy with who I am at this moment in my life. I would take eternity.
Okay. I'm not sure that logic plays, but I'll take the answer. Poof. All right, guys. Thanks so much. So it was really great to have you.
Thank you. This was awesome.
Thank you so much, Eric.
Well, that's all for our episode with Tejal and Chirag, folks. Thanks for listening. To tell you a little bit more about Tejal, she's the founder of an online training program called the Mindful Mama Experience. She's also a writer, and she teaches mindfulness and Kundalini meditation to mamas and to kids ages 3 to 9. And she leads a 5-day mindfulness reset for moms. And the next of those is starting up in just a few days here. So if you'd like to learn more about her, or if you'd like to check out one of these mindfulness challenges, you can find her website at tejalvpatel.com. That's Tejal, V like Victor, Patel.com. And I'll link that in our show notes for you as well. Now on to the details of our break here together. As I said, this is episode 100. We've been live for just over a year now, and I have to say things are going exceptionally well. Better, in fact, than I could have expected in many ways. And I'm very, very grateful for that. This is the best thing I've ever done, and I'm happier than I knew was possible. At the same time, I'm finding that I've hit a wall regarding the format of our show. it's time for an upgrade. It's time for a refresh. And I don't have the bandwidth to produce that while also posting new weekly episodes. So we're taking a couple of months off of posting interviews in order to refresh the format and to relaunch with something even more engaging. Now, in the meantime, we're still going to be posting essays and shorter audio clips in order to keep the channel alive, so you can still tune in. And here's where I'd love to hear from you. If there's anything about our show that you want to make absolutely sure that we keep, let me know. And likewise, if you have ideas for upgrades, I would love to hear from you. You know, it's really the fans of this show that make it worthwhile. So if you've got something to say or if there's something you want, please do tell me. I'm going to make sure we get it in here. You can contact me on any of our platforms. You can find our website at together.show. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/together. Twitter and Instagram are both at together_show, or you can email me at host@together.guide. Please do reach out on any of those channels. I'd love to hear from you. That's all for today, folks. See you very soon.